Welcome to Mindful Live 82. It's nice having you here. Nice that you joined me. I'm your host, Nathan Springer. Who else would it be? I'm glad that you decided to spend your evening listening to the information and news of the day. And what are we going to talk about today? Well, today we're still on the BACKPAY topic. The public sector is still talking about the money that they believe they're owed. They're still talking about the pay increase that they were offered by the government, the very small pay increase, the very modest pay increase of 2% across 8 years, and they do not like that at all. They are not happy about it one bit. But previously, when we were speaking about this, I said that I could understand it in some context why. We could speak about that use of Tyler, but a little later. I could understand it in some context why some people kind of have no care about what anyone has to say. They just want as much as they could get out of the system. Because when you look at it, okay, you're saving money and you're worried about the country going bankrupt, and let's save some of that money, let's not overspend and bankrupt our country. That's not in the best interest of us. Okay, grand. You're thinking so magnanimous about your country, to all that patriotism. But then the people who actually hold the purse strings of the country, you watch that they're so willing to spend billions at their own whims and fancy for frivolous nonsense. You could kind of figure, like, you know what? If they could waste $1 billion on a field highway project, well, give me my money now. Pass my back pay. Pass my back pay. If you could waste money on something else, pass my back pay. And I understand that thought process. I fully well understand it. But there are lots of problems with it because there are other people in the country too. But we are going to talk about that tonight and see where we get in this discussion. Thank you for joining me. Please do hit that like button if you are over on any of the live streaming live right now on TikTok and on YouTube. Usually I stream on Instagram also, but Instagram decides to give its technical difficulties every now and again, so we say forget about it and we go on with the show. So make sure you're hitting that like button if you are over on TikTok, because it allows the algorithm to know it's some good stuff and sends it out further there. If you are looking at it live on YouTube, because it is streaming live on YouTube, also on my YouTube channel, Nathan Springer over there. Be sure to subscribe, hit the like button, drop a comment if you have something to say. And if you are looking at it live on TikTok, when it's done, head over to YouTube and subscribe nonetheless, because the benefit of that is all of the lives are saved there. If you ever want to see what was said, if anything was said in a previous said live, you could go and see it there. All right. So yeah, let's get into the stories that make up this idea that we're talking about tonight. First has to do with the fact that apparently we owe $1 billion to a known corrupt, folded, bankrupted company. Oh, the joys. NIDCO's decision to cancel OAS highway contract to cost TNT near $1 billion. A decision by the National Infrastructure Development Company Limited, NIDCO, to cancel a contract for the Solomon Hochoy Highway Extension Project with Brazilian construction firm Constructura OAS SA is set to cost the state almost $1 billion, delivering a decision on a partial final award on April 16th. Arbitrators John Fellas, Adam Constable, QC, etc., of the London Court of International Arbitration upheld Constructura OAS's arbitration claim against NIDCO and ordered US $126.3 million, approximately $852 million in compensation. In the 23-page ruling obtained by Guardian Media, the arbitration panel ruled that NIDCO was wrong to have terminated the contract based on the two main grounds it claimed. In the arbitration proceedings, NIDCO claimed that the construction company effectively abandoned the project in late 2015 after it slowed down work, dismissed most of its staff, and became insolvent by letting debt accumulate to suppliers and contracts. The company denied any wrongdoing as it claimed that the issues raised by NIDCO were due to the fact that it, NIDCO, failed to make a major interim payment under the contract. It claimed that at the time of termination, it had injected a further $31 million into the project and had now renewed its performance and retention bonds. Okay, this is a lot of bacchanal here. This is a lot of bacchanal. Now, the reason... Where are you getting your information? If you are looking at me over on YouTube, you'd see very obviously, because that's the other benefit of going over there to YouTube and subscribing and seeing the lives over there. The benefit is the articles are rolling behind me right now. So the article, exactly what I'm reading, is right behind me. Where it's from to, you'd be able to see it. It's an article. It's a newspaper article from The Guardian. NIDCO's decision to cancel OAS highway contract to cost TT near $1 billion. That's the name of the Guardian article. Which highway project? The highway extension project from Penal. That one, of course, that started under the previous administration. Now, here's part of the bacchanal with all of this. OAS, Constructura OAS, was a known corrupt company out of Brazil, where a lot of corruption occurs, apparently. And that company went bankrupt because they were sued into oblivion and they lost several court cases. And I believe several high-ranking members of the company's staff went to jail, if I remember correctly. However, what the arbitration court in London, the International Arbitration Court, is ruling is that the breaking of the contract down here still was against the law, because NIDCO failed to pay the people when they were supposed to pay the people. And because NIDCO failed to pay the people, the project slowed down. And then NIDCO went ahead and said because the project slowed down, they are going to break the contract with them. But the company is saying the only reason the contract slowed down was because NIDCO wasn't paying them in the first place. Okay, let's see where more of this is going. In upholding Constructura OAS case, the arbitration tribunal ordered that it be paid. Okay, we get that. The damages represent the company's claims for performance and retention securities, a series of unpaid interim payment certificates, etc., etc., etc. The compensation to be paid to the company can still rise, as the arbitration panel requested further submissions from the parties on whether the damages awarded could attract interest. The tribunal also has to consider the company's claim for additional damages on the grounds that NIDCO was overpaid when it seized the bonds in connection with the advance payment deduction. So NIDCO sees some bonds. All right. Munilal claimed the outcome of the arbitration proceedings was raised by opposition MP Dr. Rudal Munilal last week while he was making his contribution to a motion to adopt a report on the Standing Finance Committee in Parliament. Munilal claimed that the government was deliberately concealing this development. In early 2011, the Constructura OAS was awarded the contract for the project, which was then estimated to cost approximately $5.3 billion. This is the same highway that Tanti told Tanti Kamlan to put. Yes. So Constructura OAS was supposed to build that said highway that was supposed to run betwixt. After the contract was terminated, the project was put on hold for several years before being restarted with local contractors. This project had a lot of bacchanal with it. Constant bacchanal. I believe at the height of it, someone did a price breakdown, and this project, at the cost they were putting to it, was costing probably one of the most expensive per mile of highway in nearly the entire world. the average price per highway, per mile of highway. What was the contractual payment schedule? Well, they didn't go into the specifics there. The ruling was 223 pages, so I suppose they would get into all of that in the ruling. I don't have the ruling in front of me, so I cannot say. Why are we hiring a foreign company to do what local companies can do? Hi, Scafty. What's up? What's the good? Well, that was the bacchanal also. Many people were saying we have local companies that are capable of doing this. So why would you hire a Brazilian construction company? And the part that made it even more ruffling of the eyebrows worthy is the fact that this Brazilian company was mired in corruption allegations and bacchanal. So you took this local project and give it to a Brazilian company that was known to be corrupt. Why do that? Who knows? When looking at costing, tell us the job specification that was costed by UNC versus PNM. I do not have that in front of me. See, therein you will see where the cost lay. In August last year, NIDCO announced the project was 3/4 complete. However, several months later, a segment of the highway at Mosquito Creek collapsed. That was another bit of bacchanal there. In July 2019, Cabinet announced a commission of inquiry to investigate aspects of the project, including whether a ministerial oversight committee under the People's Partnership government had fulfilled its mandate. The committee was headed by former Prime Minister and current opposition leader Kamla Persad-Bissessar and included several former members of Cabinet, including Munilal. So Mr. Munilal himself was in charge of writing up the contract and making the deal that went through with this company. At least that's how it's stated here, because he was in charge of that ministerial oversight committee that went into this construction company's contract. So now, when this bacchanal hits the fan, there are some questions to be answered. PM tells Commissioner of Police probe removal of OAS contract clause costing TNT 852 million. Kevon says, as I recall, that highway cost more than Rapid Rail project of over 20 kilometers in Ethiopia. I remembered some comparisons of such. She went on, wow. The difference in prices quoted by the then PNM was not a complete job spec, just segments of the works to be done. Okay, I understand that argument. Jack Warner would have never made us lose all that. Wow. Come on now. Don't go in so hard on the tanty. The Prime Minister has a comeback on this though, as it emerged yesterday that the government is now owing 852 million to bankrupt Brazilian firm OAS Constructura. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has called on the Police Commissioner McDonald Jacob to investigate who signed an addendum to the OAS contract, allowing the firm to walk away with the near $1 billion. So according to the Prime Minister, the reason they won this bit of arbitration was because someone signed an addendum onto the contract allowing for such. Speaking at a People's National Movement meeting in Arima last night, Dr. Rowley launched a scathing attack against opposition leader Kamla Persad-Bissessar, saying 3 days before the United National Congress lost the 2015 election, an addendum was added to OAS's contract with the National Infrastructure Development Corporation, which robbed the country of money when the Brazilian firm became bankrupt. So tell me, is something suspicious that 3 days... Let me make sure I'm reading this correctly. Let me make sure. 3 days before the election in 2015, someone put in an addendum to the contract that as this company went bankrupt and we severed ties with them, we're now owing them $1 billion. Now, I find that strange because even in 2015, OAS had already started to disintegrate. The writing was already on the wall about OAS. They were already under investigation during 2015. Brazil struck gold yes now by a whole billion. Of course it is. Why was there a need to alter the contract? Well, I don't know why there was a need. 3 days before the election. And you altered it to a known corrupt company so that we would lose money as a country. And now you have to wonder, why would they do that? What benefit is there in that to whoever signed this addendum? The contract documents, this is Dr. Rowley speaking here, the contract documents had clauses in it that protected the country against bankruptcy. There was one clause, 152E, which said if the contractor is insolvent or goes bankrupt, the bonds the contractor put up go to the state. But they, the UNC, did something to allow the contractor to go away with the money, Rowley charged. He said when the PNM won the elections on September 7, 2015 and got into office, it went to the court in a bid to get the addendum declared null and void. Wow. So 3 days before the election, the addendum is signed in there. As soon as the election is finished, the PNM goes to court to try and get it signed to be null and void. However, he noted that recently a ruling from the tribunal has now mandated NIDCO to pay OAS the money. So he is demanding that the Commissioner of Police now go into NIDCO and find who signed that addendum. How many of you have hope that we will get to the bottom of this? We will find who signed that addendum. We will find who did it. And they will be brought to justice. Who has belief that it would happen? If you have belief, come. I have a bridge to sell you. Because this is the common thing that we are accustomed seeing. Listen, if you're accustomed reading news in Trinidad and Tobago, on a regular basis, you would hear corruption stories that would make you whistle. The amount of billions in dollars just whoosh disappear, and you're like, but somebody has to pay for this. And someone stands up on a political platform and tells you they stole $1 billion from your pockets, and you're like, wow, that's kind of a lot of money. I could do with $1 billion, thank you very much. And then nothing comes of it, and the next person goes up on the platform and says, yes, that other person, while they were telling you about the billion that I stole, they stole $1 billion too. And you're like, okay, I understand. You all are telling me that people are stealing my money. Thank you for telling me, but can one of you all stop them from actually stealing my money, please? Can someone do that? Can someone, stop the theft? Instead of just telling us about it. So let's say they did it to sabotage. It's only a few people could sign it, so it shouldn't be that hard to find out. So let's say they did it to sabotage the PNM. If they had a win, they would have incurred the debt themselves. Cambridge AKC, justice in this little land madness. Kirvon says nobody gets arrested, charged, prosecuted. Richard Glubman firstly was signing the addendum illegal or immoral. Very good question, Richard Glubman. Jungle Toad, we can't find the scaffolding contractor for the Red House. You're gonna find who signed addendum. Very good point, Jungle Toad, and that's kind of what I'm saying too. The only person that can save us is a joint team of Gigi, Ian, and Philip. Partner, you on your own with that talk. You on your own with that piece of talk there. I'm not sure I'll save myself. Thank you. I'll save myself. But Richard Glubman, what you said there is a very interesting point. But the point that Dr. Rowley was making, where he is asking the Commissioner of Police to investigate, is because there was a ministerial oversight committee. And the ministerial oversight committee, their duty legally was to seek the best interest of the country. Maybe if it can be proven, no 868 Cokes, you are not early. Maybe if it can be proven that someone signed this addendum that is demonstrably not in the best interest of the country, then maybe something can be done there. But That's just the problem. Almost anything done on on the political level, no matter how criminal and illegal it actually is, usually can be twisted and turned into something that is more of a slap on the wrist. And no, don't do that anymore. And no longer a criminal charge. It's just the way it goes. You get caught smoking marijuana as a politician, it becomes a scandal. You get caught smoking marijuana as a regular citizen, well, before it was decriminalized, and you get put in jail. Same thing, a politician gets found with cocaine remnants in his home, and it's a scandal. You get found with cocaine remnants in your home, and it's a case, and you're behind bars. That's just the way it goes, isn't it? Nobody but the small man. Well, they had to secure the kickback, Canute Sig Trigger says. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows the final reason? And this is part of it. Why I understand the perspective that some of the public servants have. When you look at things like this, someone in government was willing to just sign away $1 billion of our dollars, like whatever, $1 billion to a corrupt Brazilian. Not even like okay, if you give it to a local contractor, whether he was corrupt or not, at least you could have the hopes that he might spend a good bit of it down here at least. Like if you split that up among a couple zesters, just give them that $1 billion. You know the money getting spent locally. At least that's something you could feel certain about. Yo, Ria, what's the good? You could feel certain about that. But no, $1 billion out to a Brazilian company. And the thing is, the company is bankrupt. So the moment that $1 billion touches that company bank account, touches that company's coffers, all that money disappears, because all that money is already spoken for, because the company is bankrupt. It's bankrupt. So as a public servant, if you're looking at that, you're thinking, all right, you're saying the country is struggling. We shouldn't be asking to bleed money out of the bones of the country, but you all in the political class are just willing to flippantly throw out $1 billion there. So why not? And I guess that's a good question. But in everything, you have to look at the balance of it. So $1 billion signed off in this addendum to the Brazilian company is horrible. And you look at that and you're like, that's not how we should function. But the recurring expenditure of salaries in the public service is way more than $1 billion. When do we start charging leaders for mismanagement and bubble? I was just speaking about that. Their criminality is a scandal. Our criminality is jail time. Calm. Annual public sector wage bill already $19 billion. Finance Minister Colm Imber has revealed that wages in the public sector amount to $19 billion a year, which he said amounts to 40% of the country's estimated annual revenue. 40% of our revenue, not of our expenditure, of our revenue. But that isn't just regular public servants. I am aware that is everyone. I am not negating who or what it is. That has nothing to do with the point I am making. I am making the point that sorry that our government collects money. Bear in mind, nearly no government makes money. The idea of a government is to produce, to supply services. They collect money, and out of all the money they collect to benefit this country, to build roads, to see about the hospitals, to see about infrastructure and schooling and all of that. 19 billion, 40% is just in recurring salary expenditure. Like, is that the ideal? Is that the ideal? Like, think about it. To me, think about it. Is that where you think the ideal should be in a country? 40% of our revenue goes to salaries. And as I said yesterday, was that yesterday? When previously we spoke about the public service, are we getting 19 billion a year in value out of the public service? I think that is a fair question. I think that should be a fair question. If they were managing money correctly and not indulging in nefarious activities, then that would be fine. I disagree. If they were managing the money correctly, 19 billion would still be being spent in the public sector. Whether they spent the 1 billion at OAS or not, whether they spent the 1 billion at OAS or not, 19 billion would still be going every year just into salaries. Former Finance Minister Winston Ducaran, so there's bipartisan support to some of this, is validating MindFULL's comments on the country's wage bill. Ducaran told Guardian Media, "I do not recollect the numbers, but it has always been an issue for some time now." Ducaran believes the time has come for a wage policy to be developed in this country. We are now at the very beginning of a return of some kind of uphill road, but there is still a lot that has to be achieved. So in that context, I would think wage restraint would be a necessary requirement for a macroeconomic growth and stability. However, he added that wage restraint must be linked to a credible strategy for expanding the growth process. Commenting on the argument that inflation has increased over the 8 years, Ducaran said, and this is my point, I agree, Mr. Ducaran. It is wrong to say because inflation goes up, wages must go up, because when that happens, it is a cycle that goes on and on. What has to go up is growth. When growth increases, then income increases, then wages must increase. So let's analyze these things that he's speaking about here. Let's analyze these things that he is speaking about here in comparison. Inflation. When inflation goes up, we hear from the unions, from many of the workers, they say inflation goes up, so we deserve a pay increase. Inflation goes up, we must get a pay increase. That is insane. That is not how it works, because there's a limited pie size. You understand? The pie is of a limited size. If you decide to increase the number you get, what that is going to do is mean that all that is going to do is the number you get is now going to represent, although you get a bigger number, it is going to represent the same slice of pie. The only way you get more is by increasing the size of the pie. Increasing the number of your salary doesn't actually increase the value in the system. All that is going to do is reciprocally increase the inflation throughout the system. So you go ahead and increase all the public servant wages, and then all the rent increases across the country, all the taxi fares increase across the country, everything goes up in turn because there's no added value in the system. If you want to actually get more, how you get more is putting more value inside of the system. In other words, growing the system. That's what I always say. And the problem with the public service, this 40% of our revenue, this massive chunk of our revenue that just falls into this public sector. The problem there is it's very difficult to know if we're getting growth economically out of the public sector. What benefit do we get out of the public sector economically? I am sure there is some, but how do we evaluate that to know what is the value worth for the growth we're getting out of the public sector? So for the past 8 years, how much value did the public sector put into the economy? If they did not put an increased level of value into the economy, they cannot rationally get an increased amount of money. for growth, we need investment. For growth, we don't only need investment. Investment is part of it, but investment isn't the only thing with growth. Growth has to do with also with who is working in what sector. If people are working in sectors that provide no boost economically, then you will not get any growth. It's like if we have an economy based on mining and we say all miners stop mining and let's go in and all write poetry. And the government will pay them to write poetry. Okay, grand. And you could have investments into the poetry writing division of the government. And all of the miners stop doing mining. Now, okay, we'll have working people in the economy and we'll have investment there. But would our economy grow? Would we be getting any added value inside of our economic system? No, because we are not putting something out there that people are willing to pay for, that has value to other people. That's how the economy grows. Good night, Shiny Dogla. It's been a long, long time, sir. What's the good? He said, this is Dukaran also speaking, he said, while he understands that higher wages are desirable, it is just not currently affordable. Dukaran recounted that when he was finance minister from 2010 to 2012, listen to this is Winston Dukaran speaking, he functioned under the People's Partnership, he functioned under the COP, he functioned under the UNC, he functioned under the NAR before that. So he has long experience in this and with multiple political sides. Dukaran recounted that when he was finance minister from 2010 to 2012, he proposed a 5% wage increase for public sector workers, but was overruled by the People's Partnership cabinet. And in my view, we paid a heavy price because it was all those things that led eventually to the collapse of Petrotrin. This is Winston Dukaran. He is one of our preeminent economists in this country. He is saying that previously when he was finance minister and in pursuit of favoring what the public outcry was, the partnership went ahead and gave them a bigger boost. That led eventually to the collapse of Petrotrin. The collapse that many people now are blaming for a lot of our problems we are facing economically locally. So, you see, it's beautiful to think of everything in the perfect. That ain't adding up. All right. Now, I cannot speak for him. I cannot speak for him on how he makes that chain reaction directly, but I could see how it would work in that sense. In that increases to the public sector apply throughout the public sector, and obviously in Petrotrin, where they already were paying people well more than they were supposed to be paying them in some jobs, I am pretty sure they would have had increases going in there too. I don't know exactly how he makes the connection. He didn't say directly there. Maybe in one of his books. Maybe in one of his books he would elaborate on that first. But notwithstanding this, the unions under the National Trade Union Center umbrella are gearing for a protest against the 2% on Friday. So we'll see who wins that. We cannot just continue increasing wages and not make more money as a nation, overstaffed and overpaid constantly. And the thing is, there are always consequences to this. According to Dr. Rowley, he says that the hefty salary increases will plunge country into debt. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley says the hefty increases for public servants can plunge the country into debt, as he last night cautioned citizens to be responsible while wage negotiations continue. And this is a very interesting thing for the PNM, because a large portion of the PNM base is in the public sector, in the East-West corridor, where the PNM has a lot of their stable seats. In the PNM, in the East-West corridor, where the PNM has a lot of their stable seats, that's where you find a lot of public sector workers. And the PNM would have to obviously thread here. The PNM would obviously have to thread very carefully right there. I would like to let you up, Ria, but I haven't set it up to allow the mic to run through the system and into YouTube yet, so you wouldn't be able, they wouldn't hear you over on YouTube if I do it right now. So when we finish here in the after live chat, we'll talk about that over on TikTok. And the thing is, when you look at different places in the world, there are consequences that we see happening with some of this direct action. Look over in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is an omen. This is from the foreignpolicy.com magazine or website. Sri Lanka is an omen. To solve a global economic unwinding, the world must learn to focus on more than one crisis at a time. Many Western leaders are behaving as though there's one crisis in the world, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, while some are waking up to the widespread knock-on effects for food and energy security. There's little bandwidth, it seems, to address the underlying looming crisis, a global economic unwinding driven by the COVID-19 pandemic, climate breakdown, and degradation of the international political and economic system that has been at least a decade in the making. Together, these crises have put scores of countries at serious risk and lit a fuse where those risks intersect with authoritarianism and poor governance. Sri Lanka is a case in point. The country owes over $50 billion to government creditors such as India, China, and Japan, and private bondholders, and it is no longer making interest payments. You can go through this article, and they go through some of the reasons Sri Lanka is in the current position they are in. They were ruled obviously by a corrupt leadership, and then this corrupt leadership was attempting to function on a populist playing field where they would splurge money on the population to make sure they're popular. And the thing is, there's a limited amount of money. As the statement, who was it? I believe it was Iron Lady Margaret Thatcher over in England. I believe it was her who coined the statement that the problem with socialism is you run out of other people's money to spend. And you have to realize that the government service, the public sector, runs on basically a socialist principle. The people working there aren't directly contributing to something valuable and getting paid based on that. The hope is that the government system runs this so efficiently that the payment they take out of our tax money and out of the money from the country and pay it into the public sector, that it would be worth it. That's the hope. But when has the government ever lived up to the hope in running things efficiently? Let's see some of what Ria is saying here. I personally know people that does use the government job and collecting the full salary and always complaining about a job that they does barely go to. Does abuse the government job. Not all public servants are the same, and not all government workers are public servants. Everyone pays some taxes. I'm not saying that doesn't exist, but this is why change in the system needs to happen. Where am I? Let's correct that. That climate change and pandemic didn't cause the crisis. Lockdowns caused it. That is very true. Very, very true. All right. The thing is, a lot of what you're arguing there, Ria, we did speak about some of that last night when we spoke about the public sector. And, all right, let me make it clear again. I do not believe all public sector, all public servant workers are lazy and arrogant. I don't believe that. However, I believe the majority of the public service do not put out reciprocal value for the amount of money they are paid. I am saying it plainly. I believe the majority of the public service do not put out reciprocal value for the amount of money they are paid. Now, it's very easy to say that the real fault for that is at the management level and at the political level, because they are so backward in their thinking. They do not run this system efficiently, and that's why these workers cannot function like this. Okay, that's partly it. Maybe. But me, as a worker, regular sector worker out there, working as a normal person, I am looking at that and I'm wondering, okay, The government doesn't run this thing efficiently. And because of that, we have all of these workers collecting money for work not done. And their solution to it is that until the government decides to make a better management system, you just have to keep paying me more and more and more and more. Like, that is not sustainable. And okay, we're hoping and wishing that the government decides to restructure it. How are we going to make that happen? Why are they going to, I always say this, I keep saying this, why do we expect politicians to disrupt the status quo that got them the positions of power? Now, I was reading another one of, was it the, all right, yes, Nata President, when he was speaking about other benefits that he sees the public servants can get. And he said, however, the unions are willing to come up with proposals to reduce the burden of an upfront payment of back pay to the workers, and this will be put in writing soon and delivered to the government. He said one such proposal could be using a public servant's back pay as a down payment on a house from the Housing Development Corporation. Here's the thing. That is how you end up with socialist communist nations. That right there, where I am supposed to be a private sector worker. I am out here putting my value on the line, and people are paying me based on my value. And then I look in the public sector, and I know for certain, as I said, the majority, more than half, and I'm willing to say a vast majority, but maybe let's not go there. Just the majority, more than half of them are being paid way more or considerably more than the value they are putting in the system. And then I look at that, and I see further than that, they are given houses. And then when I look in the private sector, and I'm looking and I'm wondering, okay, if I put my value into our economy and extract the payment that the economy is willing to pay me for this, and then I use that to attempt to buy a house for myself, how long will that take me? How difficult will that be for me? And then I look at someone who is putting not the same amount of reciprocal value in the system, and they're getting a house. Then here's what's going to happen. Here's what's going to happen with that. Me, the serious worker, me, the person who actually wants to put effort into working, I'm going to say that this system, this country, this economy doesn't pay my effort. So either I am going to become lazy and look for a public sector job to pay me and let me cruise through my life, or I am going to leave this country where they punish people for working hard and reward those who are willing to get their to feed at the government trough. They reward you once you are willing to do that. That is insane. That is not how this thing is supposed to function. Which private sector person working on 2013 salary? Quite a lot, actually. Quite a lot. There are lots of private sector people still getting paid the same thing they got in 2013. What is the expenditure for government officials since 2013 to present? I admitted this. I wish you were here from the very beginning. Let this be the drop for any of you. If you miss any of the lives, you can go back to my YouTube channel, Nathan Spring on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe there, and the lives are located there. You can hear it. I spoke about this at the beginning. I understand why it feels insane when you look at what the politicians willingly spend our money on. I agree. But what is the solution to that then? Is the solution, the analogy I drew last night, was it last night? Whenever else we spoke about the public service. The analogy I drew, if we are all of us are in a group, and we are pooling our money together so that we can buy things for the group, and the person in charge of the money is pocketing some. They're pocketing some constantly. And one person notices, hey, they're pocketing some. What should be the solution there? Should we allow every person then to grab as much of the money pool as possible and run? Is that the solution for that? that we then allow now all of anyone inside of the pool to grab up as much as they can. That's how you end up with a kleptocracy. That's how you end up with a country that is not functional. Everyone just grabs as much as they can and runs away. And then the good workers leave again. Same thing. The solution I proposed since last night was that we function as a free market. If you think you are an efficient, good, smart worker in the public sector, and you are not being paid reciprocally for your services in the public sector, and the management is lethargic and backward and doesn't know how to upgrade, and the political class on top of that have no interest in doing anything better, then you leave that job and find a better one, or you find a better one and leave that job. That's how the free market functions. If we don't function like that, then we reward that kind of behavior and we go out handing houses to all public servants. All the public servants get a house. Private sector workers out there struggling to pay $1.7 million for a house when they're barely scraping $7,500, and they're watching people who don't work as hard as them go out there and get houses for free. That's not a smart thing. I remember looking at one of the things I found that was so unfair. I said it before. One of the things I found so unfair in that, when Carney closed down and they gave every worker 2 acres of farmland and a housing lot, and probably, according to how long you were there, nearly 100,000 cash visa payment. That is insane. That is not how a country is supposed to run. I found that was insane. Which company functions like that? That is ruining the free market. That's ruining the market, ruining the economy and how it's actually supposed to work. It seems like you're working harder to reach half the way. They need to shut down the public service and start over. Maybe that's exactly what they need to do. Maybe. All right. That's all I have for now, folks, over there on YouTube. I am glad you tuned in. And drop a like, drop a comment if you stayed this long over there. Tell me what you think. And I'll see you again for the next Mindful Live tomorrow at 9:30. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. Peace.